The latest big release in the Pokemon series, Pokemon Legends Arceus, launched more than a few days ago, and I couldn't have been more interested to see a new installment. Since its reveal, the game has caught my attention by promoting itself as not only a new chapter for the franchise, but of a refurbished format for the ever successful gameplay formula of the series, shifting from the stagnant and repetitive linear RPG style that made the series a household name to taking in a lot more action and exploration mixed in with the familiar turn-based battles that we are accustomed to. A refreshing change that I wholeheartedly welcome. However, now that the game is finally here, it is time to address what direction the series should take next, not only depending on the success of this first Legends installment, but also based on the majority of the fanbase's reception to the new style of play. Let's talk about it. I had just recently discussed the current state of the Pokemon series on this channel in one of my latest videos shortly before the release of the Gen 4 remakes, where I expressed a lot of concern and frustration on how stale the mainline titles have become to play, especially being that BDSP, despite being a highly anticipated and somewhat overdue remake, was the third formulaic 3D pair of titles on the Switch alone. The silver lining, however, was the prospect that was Legends Arceus. From the start, fans were given a very large concept of an open-world adventure in a unique pocket in time of the series' lore, immediately drawing broad and difficult to live up to claims like it being the Breath of the Wild of Pokemon. And as the months towards launch drew closer and more information was revealed, it was quickly clear that that wouldn't be the case. Eventually, I did tune out of a lot of the trailers and news updates for the game, as I didn't want to know what to expect when I finally got my hands on Legends Arceus and didn't want any expectations to be strewed by any other creators who had an overly negative or way too positive assumptions for the game. Now that it has been released officially and that I've had a chance to play it quite a bit, I can confidently say not only was it exactly what I expected personally, but it is precisely what was needed to happen for the Pokemon series to have any type of significant progression moving forward. To start, we have to address some of the obvious gripes. The game is a cutscene fest, which is nothing new. It's purely just to pad game time and to overload the player with information to justify the game's plot and logic. That being said, I always thought the lore that has been formed around the Pokemon series over the decades was already pretty strong and well cemented. And while this new wedge thrown into it by Legends definitely adds to it, some of the critical and defining parts of the game don't really make sense to me personally. Another given is the graphics. It has been discussed into the ground that the Switch isn't a strong system from a visual standpoint compared to its competitors. This is absolutely nothing new from Nintendo. In fact, the last time their systems have probably come close to Microsoft and Sony's from a graphical aspect was likely in the 90s. That's not a real problem for someone looking to enjoy a fun Nintendo game. The problem is that it has been particularly awful in the Switch Pokemon titles. It was a loud issue in Sword and Shield. In BDSP, the problem leaked into the art style, and it is present once again. I'm positive that these games can look better. I mean, look at flagship Switch titles like Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. Pokemon is one of the three critical adventure series that Nintendo prioritizes and should have the same, if not more, assets to make a good-looking game. And at this point, it might just be an internal issue with the Game Freak or the TPCI teams unrelated to Nintendo. For instance, I don't like any of the new designs. Some of them are actually a little unnerving, especially in-game when they are roaming around the open areas. It's almost reminded me of how disturbing the Ultra Beast and Sun and Moon looked, except in that game that was purely intentional because they weren't necessarily Pokemon but Pokemon-esque extraterrestrials. Growing up, I always gravitated towards the series over some others just because of how digestible and unpretentious the characters constantly are. Nevertheless, it doesn't impact gameplay, just some of the Pokemon are ugly and the environment just looks like a tech demo. Speaking of gameplay, it is both the most disappointing and most exciting aspect of Legends Arceus. This game 100% wants to break into that full action RPG style of play, but it is ultimately held back by restraints to keep some of the recognizable Pokemon assets intact, as well as simply just poor execution in this first venture in that direction. The open exploration in-game is cool, but you quickly realize that the game moves extremely weirdly, like the movement is awkward from both the player and the Pokemon AI. Again, it feels like a demo. There's a massive amount of grinding you have to do between progressing in the mainline story and meshing out the ancient Pokédex. Granted, I think the concept of doing a very daunting and repetitive task to build a Pokédex back when it was in its earliest stages is actually super cool. But for myself personally, it bogged down a lot of the excitement. The battles don't make a lot of sense to me right now either. I'm just going to attribute it to the fact that it is a new game and I haven't gotten especially comfortable with it yet. But then again, a lot of those action RPG cues just aren't really being hit. Quite a few of the new elements to the turn-based play everyone is familiar with don't logistically work most times. The style changes and the turn order thing hasn't clicked for me at this point, but I'm seeing it get praise as well, so I'll hold out from holding that against the game as a final product. What I still can't hold out on though is the false advertisement Legends Arceus has had in general. The open world dream was definitely boisterous to expect, but the open exploration isn't fulfilling at all. All of the new innovations in the game are not seamless whatsoever. Boss battles are heavy and anticlimactic, acknowledging the grandiose of what the time period of the game's setting is. Again, keeping a lot of the family value, true to brand nature, limited to how spirited and thrilling Legends Arceus could have been. It also doesn't feel like a mainline game or even an important game. It feels like a project or a spin-off, which isn't good when the point of this game, to my knowledge, is to jumpstart a sub-series of titles that dive into very critical lore and history of different regions and pre-established legendary Pokemon. I wouldn't be surprised if the game was just extremely rushed or forced ahead of schedule, just based on the overall energy that was given off from the game's environments and functions. And by the end of my playthrough, I was still left with more than a few unanswered questions. Of course, this can be answered in future installments, but I'm sure the plot could have been executed smoother for more clarity, especially for somewhat of a debut title. Now, I know that this seems like a more negative review and reception to Pokémon Legends Arceus, but I still saw a lot of glimpses of something great in this game. Encountering some of these Pokemon in the open and having that free movement in battle was super invigorating, particularly for the first few times. I don't think that Legends Arceus is a great game whatsoever. That being said, I have to acknowledge that this is the first outing for this new style. Give or take another one or two of these Legends titles where it could be fleshed out better, where the devs can get a feel for what works and for how to better implement some of these new gameplay ideas and features. Like I said at the start of this video and many times before on this channel, the mainline Pokemon series has become way too formulaic and complacent. For someone like myself who has been a fan of the main titles for an extended period of time, it has been getting boring burning through the same game every year. As much as I love the series, it has been something that has bothered me for a while. So if anything, literally anything that takes a risk to shake up gameplay, it is 1,000% welcome by me. I think that this game has laid a crucial foundation and many building blocks for a new revitalization of the franchise. Traditional Pokemon certainly isn't going anywhere anytime soon, but I'm going to have the faith that this is the start of something great. With that being said, if you made it to the end, I truly appreciate you. Let me know what you think about Pokemon Legends Arceus. I'm really excited to see what comes next, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We are very close to our goal of 1,000 subscribers, and as always, take care, good game, and thank you for watching. Peace.